first session of 15th November, but session 5, which is special plenary session, Sustainability of DISCOMs. So this is a continued session from the previous one, and the discussion points for this session would be around human resources, regulatory and policy environment, customer engagement, and service quality. So this session will be chaired by Shri P.K. Pujari, former Power Secretary and former Chairperson CERC. I welcome you, sir. The moderator for the session would be Dr. Rahul Tongia. He is a Senior Fellow CSAP and Advisor to ISGF. Welcome, sir. Founding Advisor to ISGF. So we have some presentations also. So we'll be having a presentation on regulatory challenges before DISCOMs, which will be given by P.K. Pujari, sir. Then we have presentations on HR, customer engagement, and service quality, which will be presented by Shri Sanjay Mukherjee, Executive Director, Technical Distribution, CSC Limited, Kolkata. I welcome you, sir. Then we have another presentation by Shri Shailendra Dubey, Director, Inventive Software Solutions. I welcome you on the stage, sir. We also have a panel discussion in this, which will be, in this panel discussion, we have Shri Hemant Verma ji, Chairman, Chhattisgarh State Electricity Regulatory Commission. I welcome you, sir. Then we have Shri Sushant Kumar Ray Mohapatra, who is Member Technical OERC. Welcome, sir. We have Shri Ashutosh Goyalji, who is MD Allied Engineering, sorry. We welcome, sir. We welcome you, sir. Then we have Shri Rajneesh Bahadurji, who is Regional Head, Hevels India Limited. Welcome, sir. So I welcome all the speakers, panelists, and presenters. Over to you, Rahul, sir. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. I know it was a somewhat long day yesterday, but very deep and full of sort of both learnings as well as good questions raised. I mean, I want to single out Dr. Ashish Goyal's presentation, where in 3 slides, he really covered what are the issues that I hope will continue in our discussions here. Because this session is a continuation of yesterday's, where we also will talk about the regulatory and policy space. So I'm delighted that we have regulators here, but also, of course, practitioners. And we also have a word we did not hear enough about yesterday, which is the consumer. I mean, a lot of us have been talking about this from technology or DISCOM. I mean, absolutely, sustainable DISCOMs is important. People often talk about, let's have viable DISCOM. Instead of the word viable, I would like to propose the word thriving. Because it's not just that it should break even. It should be growing in different ways, not just financially. So a few snippets before I hand over to our chair from yesterday, the takeaways. The first, we heard about this word trade-offs. Second, change is happening. There is more than one change afoot. There is digitalization, which we heard about yesterday. There is decarbonization. There is also, to some extent, decentralization, because now we're changing technologies. There is, at the extreme now, we're looking at peer-to-peer, edge-based solutions. Maybe they will take time to scale, but at least the capabilities are there. So imagine a future where every second house has rooftop solar. How many of you think that's impossible? How many of you think, no hands went up. How many of you think it will happen within 10 years? So, not possible. So it's already happened in parts of the world. Western Australia, half the homes have rooftop solar already. And as regulations enable it, policy supports it, it's a possibility. But have we planned EVs? Right now they are more two-wheelers, eventually it will become four-wheelers, which will have a big impact on the grid. So these are just some examples of all the changes. So as we talk about change, we also talk about consumers. I end with a statement of Mark Twain, where he said, yeah, I'm all for progress. It's change I don't like. And so how do we not just manage this change, but actually enable the positive change that is possibly ahead of us? With this, I would now like to request our distinguished chair to share some remarks, or would you be going to the presentation?
Good morning and thanks, Rahul. You mentioned about change, and some changes happen externally and which impacts any organization, and some changes are pushed through policy framework. So any change that comes also creates challenges and opportunities. So yesterday, when you talked about sustainable DISCOMs, we talked about, or it was talked about operational efficiency, like AT&C losses, and billing and collection efficiency. Those are the challenges that the DISCOMs face internally. It is within their own domain, and they need to work within to improve it. But there are a lot of issues which arise external to the DISCOM. So I'll basically, again, in my presentation, talk about one area of such challenges, which are regulatory challenges, and other issues, as Rahul discussed, will be discussed by the other panelists. So I'll start my presentation. As I mentioned, there are challenges which are faced by DISCOMs, and some of the challenges that was mentioned yesterday. Several challenges were mentioned, like for example, AT&C loss, billing and collection efficiency. It was talked about cost-reflective tariff, and also it was referred about the RPO obligations that are supposed to be met by DISCOMs. Now, these challenges, basically, again, they arise within the organizations, which are within the control of the organizations, and some of the challenges which come from outside. So I will basically limit my presentation to those challenges which are external to the DISCOMs, and which basically arises in the domain of regulations and policy frameworks. So what are those key challenges, key regulatory challenges? I can classify, or I can identify 4 major factors which give rise to these challenges. One is disruptive technologies, in the sense that this happens external to the DISCOMs, whether we like it, don't like it. These technologies keep coming and disrupt the as usual, business as usual scenario. And like for example, I mean, these are some of the examples that I mentioned: falling distributed energy DR cost, or development of new DR technologies, and increasing digitalization, it was referred to. So these are the things that is happening. I mean, and they create these technological disruptions, create regulatory challenges, which I'll be referring to what happens. Second is the government policy directions. Now, like for example, again, these are the example. There are several policy directions issued by the government, but few of them I mentioned. It's just illustrative. Incentives, incentivize selected technology, like government's push for renewable technology, promote decarbonization, as was referred by Rahul. green energy open access, formula for green energy, electricity tariff, resource adequacy. These are the policy frameworks that are periodically announced by the government and the regulators. And this creates regulatory challenges for DISCOM. How do they handle it? Third is there are some systemic issues, tariff setting process. I mean, these are there. It is happening over the years. But are there some systemic issues which create this regulatory challenge? I'll highlight one or two issues in that context. And again, stakeholders' behavior. For example, basically consumers. Now, what are the consumer choices and the behavior which creates regulatory challenges? And this happens because of the first factor, that is the regulatory challenge, which creates or gives options to the regulators or to the consumers to behave in a certain way, or it gives their option to change their behavior. And how does it create regulatory challenges for the DISCOM? So at least I identified 4 broad categories from where these factors arise which creates regulatory challenges. The first one is, I'll refer to is disruptive technologies. So as the cost of DR technologies keep falling, it gives consumer the options to procure electricity. Either they procure it from the grid, or they self-generate, or they source from the third party. Now, each one, how they behave impacts the DISCOMs. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, certain things happens on its own, external to the organizations, but also governments keeps pushing through policy framework. Like for example, they promote technology through giving incentives or subsidy programs, or by stipulating renewable purchase obligations, net metering. These are the certain policy framework that has been announced by the government which promotes this technology. Again, so it gets accentuated. Certain things happens on its own, and some, again, on top of that, the government pushes these changes. So it creates accentuated impact on the DISCOMs. Third is, as for example, the same, renewable we are talking about, as and when the variable, and due to variable nature of the DR, the consumer, as I mentioned earlier, they remain on the grid for their own safety, but they will remain only to that extent or to that time or till such time where they have an option to get away from the grid. If there is, for example, like battery, certain battery resources are available, or their micro turbines are available, or so it makes the consumer grid independent. But this happens, or this will happen as and when the technology matures and this technology come to the market. So till that time, they may remain in the grid, but once these technologies become available, and which is not very far, and I foresee that this is going to happen, they have the choice to get out of the grid or they remain grid independent. So how does it impact the DISCOMs? Third, so what is basically happens in the sense that if they remain in the grid, then the DISCOMs have to provide the interconnection and backup facilities. It has, and so it has a cost, and once they get out of the grid, as and when it becomes possible, feasible, or economic for the consumers to get out, then how does this loss of load or loss of revenue impact the DISCOM? So this technology, disruptive technologies create some regulatory challenges which needs to be addressed. So we need to understand that. Second, I mentioned about the government policy directions. So one example, I'll take one example. Like for example, green open access, green electricity tariff to increase renewable purchase or create challenges for DISCOM. For example, government is pushing RE. I mean, is very correct and good for the system. We are going for the more greener energy and achieving our target of decarbonization. But how does it impact the DISCOM? For example, the study of CSCP, if you are talking about the formula for proposed formula for the green tariff, the CSP study shows that the cost does not reflect the cost of supply, and they may result in the financial losses, and also it may incentivize the big consumers to move away from the grid. So it may not be efficient, and also it can encourage the big consumers to move away and source their green power independently out of the grid. So in that case, it is going to have impact on the DISCOMs, and so it has again creates regulatory challenges. So we need to address. So and also making 24/7 green energy available may need a charging premium. This is a study that has come out from the CSP's paper, which I mentioned already, that paper 83 in October 2024. It shows that, so with increasing green energy, there is a need for greater flexibility in the power system with upgraded and smart infrastructure. So issue is that if that is happening, now what is the incentive system in the power sector, which basically gives the DISCOM to go for upgraded and smart grid infrastructure? Is there a system, or is there a policy framework which basically encourages, or is there a sufficient revenue for them to go for upgraded and smart grid infrastructure? As we discussed yesterday, because of the inherent tariff structure, because of the inherent losses that is taking place, it was mentioned yesterday that DISCOMs are basically in a sort of debt trap, and there are already 7 lakh crores of outstanding debt. If that is so, how does it will impact for them to really go for this large-scale investment that is required for upgraded and smart infrastructure? So again, this is a loop they are in, and it needs to be addressed. Third is the tariff setting process. Again, it has been discussed repeatedly that the tariff that is set by the regulators are not cost reflective, they are not revised regularly, but there are certain issues that I need to discuss, which again comes out from CASP's 2 paper, which I refer to here. It basically says that there are inherent processes which needs to be improved to really make the tariff cost reflective. Because when the tariff is set ex ante, it gives no revenue loss. But subsequently, a lot of things happen, and in the ex post, there is a difference, or there is a gap between the tariff and the cost, or revenue and the cost, and that needs to be addressed through, as per the policy framework, as per the regulatory framework, it needs to be addressed through the true-ups. Now, issue is that whether such true-up are done correctly, or is there an issue which arises in the true-up process. So the study shows that this is very important. The study shows that there are about 50% increases in the cost side that comes from the increase in power cost. This also was referred to you yesterday. Last time they said that power cost increases substantially, which basically impact the revenue and the cost of the structure of the DISCOMs. And 32% comes from other costs. But more important is that on the revenue side, if you look at the study shows that 30% shortfall comes from the DISCOMs' failure to collect dues from the consumer. That's about billing and collection efficiency. They say that about 30% we can account for the billing and collection efficiency, and 15% from the non-payment of subsidy. So there are certain gap is there which are not really explained by any particular factor. Now, what are those factors which could really lead to this gap? So the study concludes that these are basically the processes, or the lapse in the processes, or the tariff that itself was set in the beginning itself was low, which ultimately gets reflected when in the ex post facto scenario. So it is that factor needs to be addressed. So the question that comes up is, if those gap ex post facto are not explained to 100% by certain identified factor, what is the lapse, or what is the lacuna that in the system? So the question they need to ask is, are the DISCOM being denied? Are the DISCOMs asking the right tariff in the beginning? When they file the AAR, are they really asking the correct tariff? or if they're asking, then is the regulator denying them? Or third, is that which is that a process which basically creates this gap, that is, for example, delay in the true-up. Yesterday also it was mentioned that when the delay takes place, it leads to some carrying cost, and in the meanwhile they have to borrow to meet their working capital or the gap, which itself adds to the cost. So it is a basically the process that we need to look at, and whether the DISCOMs or the regulators or anybody is really basically complying and addressing these issues. So these are the third one I mentioned. One more. Last one I mentioned was the consumer choice. As I mentioned earlier, today the consumer has a choice to move out of the grid, and both it is in the policy framework it is provided. There are supporting policy, and there are economic incentive also to do so. So if they migrate outside, and specifically the big consumers, C&I consumers move outside, so there are a possibility that DISCOMs will become unsustainable in the present structure. The way we structure or the way they are organized in this organized, if the same organization structure continues, then probably they will become unsustainable. So there is a need to look at the role of DISCOMs, what will be that role in the future. And one of the issues, one of the options that we have been talking about is whether the DISCOMs can really transit or become netcoms. So basically what being referred to is that whether you can supply the supply business and the wire business, you can split it, the supplier, and so DISCOM become the netcom, and then there will be independent supplier. So if that is so, then we need to really look at, and it's a real possibility that in future the way the regulatory challenges are coming, the way the government is pushing for high renewable integration and the push for the decarbonizations, and the options that are available to the consumers, both because of the technology that is available and the government's intention of basically again pushing through open access, is very, very likely that consumers may choose to go off-grid if their options are available and it becomes economically viable. And we may have to really look and think about the options of DISCOMs, option of converting DISCOM to netcom, and looking at whether you can split the supply business and the wire business separately, which we have been talking about for last few years. But as on today, standing here, it looks very, very likely. So the challenges that I talked about, regulatory challenges, is basically, again, it comes from the technology that is being developed. It is coming from the government policy that is being pushed, which basically accentuate the disruptive technology that is happening. It opens up choice to the consumer. Combine these three factors are creating a challenge which we need to look at, where how the DISCOMs will be addressing those issues in the near future. But my understanding is that in the present structure, the way we have organized the DISCOMs, in this structure maybe it is difficult for them to address. We need to look at how they can be restructured to address those issues. And also at the same time, like we discussed yesterday, there are issues which are internal, like for example, tariff setting process, or AT&C losses, or billing and collection deficiencies. That also needs to be looked at. So these are the few regulatory challenges that we need to look at and address as we go along. So thank you very much.
Thank you. A few points that really struck and are relevant. One, fixing some of the problems will raise prices, but we also have the positive side that some of the changes can bring in efficiency, more cheaper green power. Solar is the cheapest new build, but it's got a time of day problem. So one of the severe questions of our sort of design for DISCOMs is how do we handle this time of day issue going forward, because renewables will grow. The other thing that's relevant that I took away, a point you made, a lot of the changes we're talking about are capital intensive. Smart meters, renewables, renewable energy has no fuel costs. It's all a CapEx play. So we have to plan for this upfront expenditure from which even if someone says I'm bringing in efficiency, those savings accrue over a long time. How we manage that and balance that from a rate-paying perspective, tariff-setting perspective, is one of the trillion-rupee questions ahead of us. So with that, I would like to now hand over and request Mr. Mukherjee, Executive Director at CESC, to share your presentation. Thank you. And while he's setting up, I hope we can keep it as short and crisp as possible, more so we can get some questions, some discussion around the points. Thank you. Sanjay. Sanjay, all yours.
Oh, it has come now. Very good morning. And I thank ISJ for this platform. I'll try to, Dr. Tongia, I'll try to contain myself. Maybe I'll take 8 minutes or so in place of 7. Maybe I'll skip a few slides for the sake of
Thank you.
Time. When we talk about sustainability, I see it as, for DISCOMs, say staying efficient, effective, relevant, and contemporary. I think that includes everything. Now, why is it a challenge that we go on discussing? Sustainability is a challenge, effectiveness, relevance, everything is a challenge for DISCOM. Because all the classical things like power purchase cost, efficiency, collection, billing, etc. will remain. It was there, it will be there as we go along. But what is happening is the disruptions. Power is now flowing both directions in the network. We are shifting towards smart grids, smart homes, smart cities. It has been now a cliche that integration of distributed resources, DRs like wind, solar, everything getting integrated into the grid. And with all IoT devices, all smart meters, lot of data is being thrown into the system, for which there are analytics to be built around, and building this analytics is going to be a challenge, and customization would be the need of the hour. Now, taking into cognizance all these disruptions, what is required for a particular DISCOM? While absorbing technology mindfully, economically, to ensure standards of performance will remain, the basic thing would be 24/7 reliable power supply. Now, when we talk about technology absorption, just one point to be taken into cognizance for all DISCOMs is that technologies, if one pays money, technologies are galore. It's everywhere. But mindfully adopting and customizing the technology for addressing the specific needs of a particular DISCOM is the challenge. Because if I am paying for the technology and I'm not getting it through the tariff, either that or it has to be efficient so that I save somewhere, spend for this technology. Otherwise, this technology will continue to be a burden, and it will be directly put pressure on tariffs. Now, another thing that is emerging slowly is a constant and increased focus on HR best practices and workforce development. While within a DISCOM, managerial reforms, stable leadership and vision would be required so that over a longish term, so that the functions, individual functions and their efforts and their good work are made to converge towards common goals. And then the workforce should be skilled enough, they should be agile, nimble-footed, and ready for innovations. Now, innovations does not have any rules or regulations. Innovations would be specific to DISCOMs just to address their own needs. And last but not the least, since customer is the core, is the focus for DISCOMs, because that is where actually money comes and flows to the power sector. So that part will continue to be very important. Consumers are now very much aware. Even consumers know about rules, regulations, etc. They are looking at social media. So consumers are very much aware, not like earlier days. Even a minute of no power Yesterday we heard that when power comes, it is no longer a news. When power goes, it's a news. And even a minute or 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, the consumers' calls starts to flood in at the call centers. But these calls, for a DISCOM, a consumer call or a consumer problem or a consumer trouble for the subsidized consumer group and the subsidizing consumer groups have to be dealt with in a similar fashion. That is a challenge. That will continue to be a challenge, but this is where a lot of work has to be done and a lot of technologies, a lot of IT interventions, a lot of OT intervention has to come in. Now, I'll skip this. Just one point is that DISCOMs may be thinking of a thinker-doer kind of structure operationally, because with so much of disruption and technologies coming in, the way DISCOMs used to function must need a paradigm shift. Thinker and doer concept is one group should strategize and think and select technologies, customize technologies, while the other group will execute. And they will definitely talk to each other, but this is, I think, going to be the mainstay of any workforce of the DISCOMs. And once again, innovation, I just will go on using the word innovation. It has no rules or regulations. So any DISCOM who needs to address the pain, specific pains, have to go on innovating. Another thing we find is that since a lot of intelligent devices are coming into the system, into the grid, so there is a convergence of IT engineers with power system engineers. The DISCOM engineers need to know IT as well, alongside normal electrical and power engineering. That is another shift that we find is going to happen. And in order for the DISCOMs to remain sustainable, a lot of focus on IT for the power sector professionals is going to be coming in. And we know that the Ministry of Power, they have, through their policy papers, documents, guidelines, etc., are continually focusing on skill development, training, and building capabilities around the new technologies. Now this I'll skip because reliability, 24/7, power, etc., what all needs to be done, it's there. A lot has been discussed over this. Another thing is this, that consumers now want that if there is a problem in the network, consumers must know beforehand, even before calling the call center, that your power supply has been interrupted and the DISCOM or we will take maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hours to fix it. That is the need of the consumers, more so in urban setups. And India is developing very fast. So even tier 2, tier 3 cities will continue to ask for this, for which there is a lot of room for technology adoption. Digitalization of customer services, virtual offices. Today, everything is on apps, on mobiles. Why only younger generation? Even the older people are operating apps for any commodity. The Blinkits, the big baskets, etc. Electricity, yesterday also we heard that it's no longer a service. We used to refer DISCOMs as a service industry, but it's no longer so. Electricity is a commodity, it's produced, it is sold, it is bought, it is traded. So everything, all services must be on apps. So I must be able to apply, I must be able to lodge complaints, I must be able to see my bills, I must be able to pay my bills, and I don't need to visit offices of the DISCOMs. Neither do the DISCOM people want consumers to visit their offices. So this has to go on, and this has to be made more and more relevant with corrections in the developments. Now, a lot of technologies will come and go, and the main challenge of the DISCOMs would continue to be, again, I repeat, mindfully adopting and customizing. And I think in this forum there will be a lot of technology providers also present in this hall. Flexibility for the suppliers, for the OEMs, for the platform providers, flexibility is very much required from them as well, because not all DISCOMs, a particular platform, IT platform, maybe OT platform, whatever, any new technology, it is given, it is built, but it has to be flexible enough to address specific needs of a particular DISCOM. Now, again, this is very well talked of in every forum, that to remain sustainable, I must be able to measure my efficiency, measure my gaps, identify my gaps, address those, adopt technologies, flexibility in operation, remain sustainable with customer at the core, and let this cycle run. And that is the main mantra of the sustainability. Now, I don't have any further slides, but just I leave one question for all my panelists and the group present here in the hall, is that we talk about flexibility in the grid. Why not flexibility in regulations as well? We have central regulations, we have state regulations, but those are regulations for all DISCOMs. Not all DISCOMs operate with the same level of efficiency or maturity. So is it right that one particular regulation should fit all DISCOM needs? I just take a specific case of, say, smart meter. There is RDSS, though private DISCOMs are not recipients of RDSS schemes. Now, if a particular DISCOM does not have collection efficiency problems, they don't have enough losses to address, then why shouldn't the regulations be flexible to allow the DISCOM, provided they can show some levels of efficiency, that why not they allowed to put smart meters where their business needs to be put? That's a question I leave. This is just a case in point, one example. So I think if flexibility is required for the grid, if consumers require flexibility, so why not regulations and the other aspects, all stakeholders be flexible too? Thank you, I stop here.
Thank you, Sanjoy. Really crisp, and also I'll pull out a few insights to emphasize. First, you reiterated yesterday's statement that AT&C loss cannot be the only driver for a smart transformation, especially in our urban and private DISCOMs. Tata Power, BSES, CSC have been leading the charge. AT&C loss is already healthy, relatively healthy, a little bit scope may be there. That cannot be the driver or the cost-benefit use case. Second, with that, there's heterogeneity. So this, I really like the point about flexibility in regulations. Third, you talked about this cycle. So that really emphasizes the process issue, that a lot of this change will not rely on drop-in solutions. Any IT, any hardware, anything put in is part of an ecosystem. And that's a key lesson from worldwide deployments that is there. And the last, I'll slightly disagree, or I'll pose it in a counter factual. Yes, the staff of DISCOMs, the HR, the teams have to be IT savvy or IT users. But I think IT also has a burden to improve its usability, its interface and simplicity. We cannot imagine the data deluge, the flood of data that is either there or coming and not easy to handle. So taking so much and making it actionable into insights and action is really a task that will need IT to improve. Now AI is going to be one of the helps for that, but it also needs a mindset change. So thank you for the presentation. I'd now like to invite and request Shailendra Dubey to share his presentation. Thank you.
So, very good morning, everyone. So, today's session on human resource, customer engagement, and service quality. So, to begin with, I'll start with the human resource. So, this human resource is a very important aspect for the DISCOM. And as we understand with the transformation which is going on, so in terms of from normal metering to smart metering, and then we could see the existing workforce that we have in the DISCOMs that also may need to, they may not have the adequate expertise to deal with the new technologies that are coming, and then again the new systems that are coming in. So we may need to assess some sort of skill gap, and we should provide some sort of training to the existing workforce that we have, so that they can deal with the subject and they can deliver the value which is intended for the new technologies and the new solutions. So that's one of the important aspect. Then again, it's with the new technologies, we need to understand how to increase the employee engagement. So the challenge is, as of now, if you see the people in DISCOM, in generally they need to be more tech savvy. So they have to use some smart apps so that they can complete, they can do their work efficiently. So for example, to manage the workforce, now everyone has to use some sort of workforce management tools, so that the things can be automated, and there is no paperwork. End-to-end solution should be automated and well integrated. So there has to be a training for the new technology and the awareness of the new, how to use the apps and understand how the workflow is, how we can make the effective utilization of the same. So those things, what we feel that we should address about. Optimizing the productivity at the same time, because we have to be the financially viable also. So everything is coming with the cost. So whether it is AMI or it is we need to bring the new skills or something, everything is coming with the cost. So in order to be the financially viable also, we have to ensure that that we need to ensure that we have to make sure the productivity from the workforce that has to come out. So there are definitely the use of AI, the monitoring, then automation things, then integrated ecosystem is also very important. Now it's a complete ecosystem. So everything is interrelated. So whether we're talking about the AMI solution, or we're talking about the billing system, or we're talking about the workforce management, so all these are the interrelated. So what we feel with our experiences, that the things are not integrated well, so there are the challenges, and the intended values are not being delivered. So if we have a proper seamless integrated ecosystem, so that will reduce that will increase the productivity, reduce the challenges, and we can get the more value additions with the solutions which are coming with. So the next, the consumer experience. This is the most important things what we feel that need to be taken up with the new perspective. So everyone is focusing on the consumer experience, because now we have the basic things in place, and we see the consumers are also taking the services from different providers. So they expect the change in the way we need to give the power consumers also experience. So this consumer experience, what is important now? So the first thing what we feel, we need to engage with the consumers. As of now, what we have experienced is consumers are not using the consumer app, what they have been provided with the DISCOMs at a largely. So how to increase the penetration? So that we have to ensure that we need to provide some value addition to the consumer experience, and then we can push this to the consumers. So the value addition, what we can give to the consumers to enhance their consumer experience. So there could be engagement with the customers in terms of smart alerts and notifications. So the smart alerts could be, let's say with the smart meters we have advantage. that whenever there is any alerts related to safety alerts or any related to commercial things, so that alerts can be automatically pushed to the consumer app in real time. So if we can change the consumer experience by providing the useful alerts in real time to the customers, so that that can help in more to make their homes more safer, and also to reduce their bills and optimize their energy usage as well. So if those kind of with useful alerts and notifications we can engage with the customers, so that we feel would be very useful. Similarly, now if you see, there has to be a subsidy is being given in some of the states. So we can give the consumers a facility in the app itself where they can track their subsidy, whether they are about to reach to their threshold. So let's say if the consumer is on 25th or 26th of the month and they feel they're still left with the 30, 40, 50 units of the consumption to be within the subsidy limit. So they can, if they come to know about it, if they are being informed about it on regular basis, so they may tweak their usage to be well within the limit by end of the month, and they can save the money on that. If we talk about this online payment is the good thing that came, that online payment facility. The consumers are adopting really on the fast pace this online payment thing. So we can, what we see that if you use the kind of Netflix or this kind of subscriptions, you can see. So if you take once the subscription, there is a facility for auto pay. So if once the month is over or your subscription period is going to finish, it automatically renew. So we can think of giving them the facility once they reach to certain threshold to their balance. So that can be auto payment of whatever the consumer has chosen with. So that kind of facility definitely help to engage more with the consumers. And once we engage more, once the consumer will engage more, then we can push the important notifications that can definitely will be useful for the consumers. So the other aspect what we have discussed is over here we bring the technology with the AMI, with this introduction of AMI and this renewable things. There are sharp change in the technology. So the change with the renewable now, the consumer also has to be to know about, let's say this solar panel is as of now being installed on the fast space. So this consumer also has to know about how to utilize maximum from the solar panel. So what we, from our experiences, what we have seen is there are small issues with the solar panel. Maybe there is a dust sometimes in the solar panel, so the generation from the solar is not adequate, or sometimes there is an issue with the angle of the placement of the solar panel. So due to that also there is less generation. So if we present consumer with the curve of their solar generation in the consumer experience, as part of consumer experience, so they would be happy, and we can provide them what they can do to improve the generation. So those personalized notifications, personalized messages we can provide to consumers, and that would basically improve the consumer experience. So that's what we are focusing on over here. And the consumer also, they want to use the consumer app. They also want to, they has to be aware about the things. So using the consumer app, they can push we can push the new schemes of the government to the consumers, and whatever the new learnings, we can educate them also through that. Maybe some kind of gamification in the app that can make them engage. So those kind of things would be very helpful. So there is another aspect of the experience, that's the utility as well. So utility also has to be smart, and there are smart applications that can be utilized at the utility end to improve on the outage, to improve on the anomalies that we have generally in the meters, to identify the the power to improve on the power quality and the network optimizations. So there are smart apps that can be used to improve on those things, and together the utility and the participation of the consumer experience can be really increased. The last thing is like we have discussed about in the length in the service quality also. So we have seen in the service there is a auto complaint kind of thing. So whenever there is a outage, we notice from any of our consumers from any of the complaint, we can act on that. There could be auto generation of the complaint, and then we can resolve it, and that could be very useful to address most of the consumers' challenges. Because what we feel, most of the times there are small issues, but it is not being addressed in the real time, and it is not automatically, there automation required to actually serve the consumers well in terms of AI chatbot, so that they can interact with the customer care, and they can get the useful information from there in real time. So those kind of things would be very helpful. To fuel all these, we really need analytics. This is the backbone to fuel all these. So Yugo One is a platform that what we have is it's a advanced AI-enabled technology platform, and the purpose is for the distribution utilities to come up with the set of products which are actually which are actually giving the value adds to the complete ecosystem. So energy analytics, which actually improve the operational efficiency of all the systems, whether it is a workforce management is being done, whether it is a head-end system or MDM, whatever we have, this could improve the challenges. So real-time communication challenges, what are the problems with the optimization or productivity of the workforce, that can become in the real time. So that's the benefit of the energy analytics. And this consumer experience, as we have said, that from the participation of consumer and utility, that can be, definitely we can bring the more effective consumer experience. So I think that's what from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think this is an exciting future with possibility to make solutions that apply to all sets of consumers, the rural, the poorer. I'm not convinced that they're all excited to use apps. If it's something in it for them, yes, they'll learn to use an app if it saves money, but for other things, it's going to evolve, and there are behavioral changes that will also evolve. So one of the things people say is, you give a price signal, consumers will shift the load. So price elasticity is something has been studied worldwide, and there is no single finding that's universal, because it's very location, regional, cultural specific. How much load will shift for which category of consumer is something that would have enormous impacts that the regulators, I'm sure, will be worrying about. So we have 3 sets of topics: consumers, HR, but a lot of it, I think, starts with the regulatory and policy. And I'm delighted we have regulators here with us. Just as a framing, one of the discussions that I've heard from regulators is, okay, this smart meter, does it have a value proposition? So a cost-benefit analysis is obviously a useful exercise. Positive. So if it saves money, then why does the regulator need to approve anything? You do it on your own, through your savings. So that's a bit of a dichotomy. So it will be interesting to hear just general thoughts, and I now request Shri Hemant Verma ji to share some opening quick remarks. And I request everyone, as we do our panel, let's try and have a conversation instead of all the points at once, because we'll iterate and come around repeatedly. Sir. As you wish. As you wish.
In discussing about the challenges with the DISCOMs, sustainability for DISCOMs, whether we can group them or can discuss one after one, but challenges are there. And challenges, I think all the DISCOMs are doing their best based on their local conditions, because each DISCOMs has their unique challenges because of these geographical locations and the different consumer base. The DISCOMs who were good in collection efficiency, better in AT&C losses, but having a lot of regulatory assets also. And the DISCOMs where the regulatory assets are not there, they are lacking in the AT&C losses and this operational efficiency. So each and every DISCOMs has different challenges and they are working over on them. So there is not a one solution for every DISCOMs. As far as regulators are concerned, nowadays regulators are working not as a regulator, but working as a facilitator. As Mukherjee Saab has mentioned, that why regulatory policy has not flexible. Yes, there is a flexibility. Lot of information comes from the Ministry of Powers and this Central Electricity Authority. We don't pass those directions as it is to DISCOMs. We see, because we are working in the local conditions, so no, what are the limitations of our DISCOMs. So we try to customize that direction and acts also. For example, he has mentioned regarding the smart meters. Yeah, there is a mandate that we have to install smart meters. But we have given flexibility that where we have to install, we have give the priority. In my own states, as I came from Chhattisgarh, there is a connections problem, network problem. So there is no point of installing smart prepaid meters everywhere until unless you have the connectivity. So I have given direction that we can start with the government buildings and government connections first, and have a clue that what are the problems we will going to face with the prepaid smart meters. Now we have started with high-end consumers also, but that is with the not prepaid mode. We have started with the postpaid mode also. Second example that regarding the flexibility. Last years there was a direction that we have to use imported coals in the generation power plant, government generation plant. We have requested that Chhattisgarh is a coal-rich states and our power plants are well designed with these local coals. And there is no need to blend with the imported coals because it's ultimately, if we pass on the cost, it will going to increase the tariff. So we are working, the clue is that as Honorable Minister Saab told yesterday, that all stakeholders have to work in coordination, starting from the central government, state government, because electricity is a concurrent subject, and that consumer also, DISCOMs and regulators. We have to sit together, and these challenges we have to solve locally. It will be better to solve it locally and use for that. Yesterday, one association of DISCOMs has been launched. That will be the, I think Dr. Ashish Goyal has initiated that. That will be the good platform for the all DISCOMs where they can discuss their problems freely. Because in the meetings, in higher-ups meetings, I don't think that they disclose their problems very openly. So it will be the better platform where they can discuss their local problems also. Regarding today's topics, HR, all DISCOMs should have HR policies, but I don't think that has been implemented and too strict. Due to local problems and other things, you can't shift one person to another person's. It happens many places. Other thing is that regulatory policies. We say that tariff should be cost effective. That for the making the tariff cost effective, a lot of other parameters should be seen. Second thing is that timely issuance of tariff. Yeah, there is a mandate that we have to issue the tariff timely. But we have to know that many of DISCOMs, they don't file the tariff petitions on the time. So, take is that we have to work in coordination, look the challenges locally, and try to resolve it with the help of, with the coordination of all stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Himajit. I think this point is so important that you have to localize all your solutions, be it technology and be it policy. So thank you for that. I now would like to request a member from OERC, Shri Mohapatra.
Distinguished dignitary on the dais and off the dais, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to all of you. So actually we are discussing about the challenges of the DISCOMs, but before going into the challenges of the DISCOMs, we should understand under which environment they are working. So because I belong to a state which is a small state in the eastern part of the India, but under which environment we are working, that unless we know, that you cannot appreciate the challenges. Because I just bring out in 1 minute what are the, under which environment we are here. Because we are the first state to bring reform in power sector, and we are the first state to bring regulatory commission in the country. We are the first to bring privatization in the distribution sector. In 1998, again, we have, it was not a success, but now again we have come with privatization of distribution sector in 2020. So then if you see that it is not a renewable rich state, so I just give you in 1 minute what are the things. It is not a renewable rich state, it is an energy surplus state, but there is deficit in peak demand. And we are a mineral rich state, 25% of the coal reserve is from my state. And we have a power intensive industries like aluminum, steel, and your cement factories. So they are all power intensive industry having CGPs. So we have CGP installed capacity around 10 gigawatt, which is more than my installed capacity of 8 gigawatt. So you can appreciate why I am saying that the environment in which DISCOM is working is important. And if you see, there are around 450 kilometer of coastline, and we have a very large water bodies, but it is affected frequently by cyclone. So I'll come to that point, what is the challenges with this? And no dependency on government subsidy. That is very, very important. We don't depend on government subsidy. And no free power. And no regulatory assets. So those things you have to understand what I mean to say. And our state is totally different from other states in the country in the sense we have an intermediary between the generator and the distribution entities, like GRIDCO, who is coordinating between the generating company and the distribution entities. Distribution entity has no role to purchase power from the outside. Only GRIDCO is the entity who coordinates with the generating company, who signs PPA with the generating company. So DISCOM has no responsibility of availability of power. Whether there is a shortage or there is a surplus, it is the responsibility of the GRIDCO. Then comes your energy consumption pattern. The energy consumption pattern is also entire state is different. In one part, it is hardly, the total energy consumption in our state is hardly 31,000 MU, out of which in one region we have only 12% of energy consumption, and in the other part it is 33%. So you can see the energy consumption pattern also. And you can see the consumer density also. If you see the consumer density varies from parts, so in the 4 parts of our state, we have different consumer density, which varies from 50 to 105. You can imagine what is the background behind this. And we are, because we have privatized our DISCOM, we are deprived of benefits of Government of India. So that part also is not in no way inferior. And no tariff hike we have done. With all this environment also, we have not done any tariff hike in last 3 years. Rather, in the last year, we have reduced the domestic tariff by 10 paisa at all slabs. So this is the background of the state. And we all know that we have privatized, and fortunately, we have a private discom. In all 4 discoms belong to one company. So that advantage we are getting because of this dispersed population, dispersed consumer, dispersed this energy variation. We take the advantage because in our state we will unlike other states, we have uniform bulk supply tariff, non-uniform bulk supply tariff to all discoms, and we have uniform RST, retail supply tariff. So all the 4 discoms have different bulk supply tariff. Bulk supply tariff will sell them at different prices, which varies from 2 to 3 rupees 80 paisa. Because fortunately we have all 4 discoms belongs to one company, so we are able to manage with that. Because some is getting 2 rupees, some is getting purchasing power at 3 rupees 80 paisa. So that's what we are able to manage. And during vesting of privatization, during vesting of this discom operation to a private entity, we had defined some outline that these are the things you have to do it. You have to do the capex investment. You have to reduce the transmission and distribution losses in the next 10 years, which has to come down to less than 10% in some of the discoms and less than 15% in 2 discoms. And they have to invest around 6,000 crores in capex. And they have to recover around 1,000 crore of outstanding dues of the previous discoms. So these are the basic 3 things. And you will give them 16% return on equity, and penalty is there, and they have the performance refund. Now, if we come to the challenge, first challenge is the operational challenge and regulatory challenge I will focus. Operational challenge everybody knows, because when there is a new system, it is easy to develop. Because our system is an existing system, and you have forced somebody to take over and develop the system. So one can imagine how difficult it is to develop a system which is already there. Whatever may be the condition, how it has been developed, nobody knows. Whether it is developed in a planned way or not, nobody knows. When you enter into that system, you understand, yes, it has not been developed in a planned way. Why I am saying planned way or unplanned way, I will just give an example. Because we have around 1,180 PSS, distribution substations, and we have around 195 GSS. But our load demand is hardly, maximum demand is 6,000 megawatt. So one can imagine what is the network we have. Associated distribution network means distribution network. We can see around 4.5 lakhs of distribution network is there at 11 kV and 33 kV. Around 3 lakhs distribution transformers are there, out of which 80% belongs to your less than 100 kV. So that is that one can imagine what is happening. With this distribution transformer of 3 lakhs, every month we have a failure rate of around 7 to 800. Distribution transformers are failing every month. 800 to 900 distribution transformers are failing. Because with this much of, because there are so many things associated with the technical provision, no protections are available, no earthing is not proper, and your this metering, number of places our metering was not there, so battery system is not healthy. These are the basic things actually many of us know. So I don't want to go into details, but our main focus is 24/7 power supply, 24/7 power supply. Right now we have, over a period of time, whatever our target, they are achieving our AT&C loss because they have focused in the initial phase, they have focused the realization of revenue, which helps us a lot because once you are financially stable, then you can do something. Because from the beginning itself, our privatization, we find that this Tata Power has done a good job. They have realized the revenue from the consumers. So indirectly it helped to our intermediary who was purchasing power from the generating company. So against which we are paying loans and interest because we are not able to pay the dues of generating company. So now we are able to pay the generating company all outstanding dues, after taking over. Rather we are getting the rebate from the generating company, and distribution company is realizing the rebate from the gridco, who is the intermediary, because they are able to realize the revenue from the consumer, and they are able to pay the gridco, the intermediary, in time, so they are getting the benefit. So this is the major benefit we observe immediately after privatization. So fortunately, I am seeing this privatization for last 3 years, and 1.5 year was with one of the DISCOMs, and by that time, and less than 1 year, the other 3 DISCOMs. So this is one of the greatest advantage we find, so which is reduce the burden on the consumer. In the sense, the gridco is not going for loan and associated interest is getting reduced, so there is no burden on the consumer. So that is one of the greatest advantage we got. And the transmission losses has come down right now. Over the years, they have made their targets, and it has come down to around 19% overall. But I cannot say this is all across the state. That varies from 14 to 25% across the DISCOMs. And on an average, you can say it is less than 19% right now with the privatization of the DISCOMs. And still, we have some pockets where loss is more than 40%. So this is the background, I would say. And another thing I will come to that, the regulation aspects. There are a lot of good things they have done. Since I am not permitted to highlight all those things, they have done a lot of good things. I think must have been discussed yesterday by Tata Power Group. I don't want to go into detail. But, and because I was telling 450 kilometer of coastal line, and water bodies are there, but we are cyclone prone. So our distribution system has to be developed for a cyclone resilient system. So our existing system was not cyclone resilient. So they have to develop a system which is cyclone resilient, and the recent cyclone didn't affect much because they have taken all precautions in coastal area to develop a distribution network which was very frequently getting affected, and huge losses was happening to our state because of this frequent, every year we have a cyclone. Even if we have water bodies and a cyclone, because of cyclone prone area, we are unable to develop solar and wind. In coastal area in other states, so we will find it. So that is the main constraint where we are facing to develop this solar and wind. Even if we have potential, but we cannot develop because of cyclone. So, I think there are restrictions, so I'll just come one or two points regarding this regulatory aspects. So one thing, first I will come to that employment and smart metering or green energy open access part. So green energy open access, we have framed the regulation because in a state like Odisha, where we don't have not a renewable rich state, but still then we are going to have a green hydrogen hub. So naturally we need a green energy. So there, because as per the Government of India policy, we should go for banking of green energy, which is not a good concept which will help the DISCOMs, because we are forced to go for banking of green energy. Banking always a two-way process, means both should be mutually benefited, but...
Sir, but the regulation says the tariff for banking will be appropriately decided by regulator. So you can actually charge the true cost of banking.
No, first of all, whether it is going in favor of the DISCOM, it is never going, because...
It's not, yes.
And that's what I'm saying. They insist for more quantum of banking.
Correct.
That is the major challenge. Because when they are asking for, we have restricted it to 30% of the energy generation to banking, but they are still asking to keep it open. So how can we keep it open in a state like Odisha, where your energy consumption
Or
is
you should
low
raise the
and demand-
banking charges, or you should raise the charges for banking.
Charges is different. There are issues with the system operation.
Correct. The
Because
capability is
you have
the
a
issue.
peak demand at a particular time, or they will draw during daytime, suppose exceed our peak demand, then it will be a problem for the system. Energy may not be that much energy content, because we will bank in terms of energy and particular duration during daytime. Again, they will draw that quantum of energy during peak hours. So we have restricted that. We cannot offer them to draw during peak hours any quantum of banked energy. So we have framed the regulations, but again, to support the government policy, that's what I'm saying. The government policy is like that. We have to support them to promote green energy, green hydrogen, because we have Paradeep and Gopalpur, the port, where these facility is coming up. So naturally, you have to promote banking. So we had to do something with this, we framed that policy. And as far as government policy as RPO, this is a uniform RPO across the country, which is not at all possible. But since government policy is there, we have to enforce in small states like eastern and northeastern states. And that too, if you come across the CGP, captive generator plants, they have already installed so many 10 gigawatts of installed capacity. Now, if we force them to go for green this RPO obligation, they are also not happy with that. So there are discussions. So we are holding on that policy aspect as far as RPO is concerned for the entire country, entire state. And then government policy also incentivize the people. Somebody comes to develop RPO, develop renewable energy in our state. Unless you give some incentive, why they will come in a state where there is a CUF level or insolation level is very low. So that naturally we have to give flexibility in our regulation or incentivize them. So we have incentivized the cross subsidy and we have reduced the transmission charges to almost zero. So all those facilities, if you generate within the state, then these are the benefits you will get so that people will come for RE policies. And similarly, again, net metering. We are discussing, we have a lot of discussion about net metering in various forms, group net metering, virtual net metering. So there is a restriction again. Because in some states, there are they are opened the entire networking, net metering quantum. So we cannot do like that. We have restricted it to only 500 kilowatt. Like central government policy, we have restricted it to only 500 kilowatt. Because if you open it 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt, whatever consumption will be there in the daytime, you have to net for the entire banking cycle or entire yearly cycle, whatever you follow. So that net metering is also a hindrance to the DISCOMs and realization of this revenue.
Thank you.
And then,
If
sir, if you give me 1 or 2 points,
we could come back.
Okay.
So, thank you. No, I mean, it's a very rich discussion. Thank you. And I think your point about trade-offs of multiple objective functions is really key, because at one end you want to enable green, but at the same time it can impact the consumers. Sanjoy, did you have a burning response to the point? We'll come back, but I want to now turn to our other panelists, but also throw a thought out there. As we talk about consumers, there are carrots and there are sticks. When you talk about smart meters, AT&C loss reduction, a lot of focus has been on the sticks. It'll be interesting to keep in mind, how do we get them excited by these transformations and participants in this journey? What are the carrots? That's another just sort of rhetorical question. Can you turn it on?
Hello. Yeah, very good morning and happy Guru Purav to all the esteemed dignitaries present today. I'm very thankful to UPPCL and ISGF to providing us this opportunity. I'm Ashutosh Goyal from Allied Engineering Works. We manufacture smart meters for last more than 2 decades and have significant deployments across the country. And coming relevant to the topic, smart metering is obviously talked a lot over these last 2 days, particularly for the regulatory, HR and the consumer engagement aspects of the smart meter. I would like to present that, for example, the smart meters can be used to directly provide regulatory indicators like SAFI and SADI, which were previously being calculated manually and were very tedious. But with smart meters, we can directly produce these values. Similarly, for the HR, the DT meters today, and UPPCL has been at the forefront of deployment of smart meters. The DT meters have transformer monitoring system, which again, my colleague from Odisha was mentioning that there are a lot of failures of distribution transformers. So these meters have DIDO ports, and at a very low cost, a DT monitoring solution can be provided, and a real-time alert can go to the field staff of the utility, thereby providing efficient HR control to the manpower. And so the meters can be a very big enablers as far as the regulatory and as far as the HR aspects of the utilities are concerned. Yeah, these are my 2 bits.
Thank you. Rajneesh.
Thanks, Ashutosh. Yeah. So just to take forward Ashutosh's point on distribution transformer failure rate and to what sir was talking about, so in order to achieve 24/7 Government of India's reliable power to all its consumers, and also reduce the revenue losses for DISCOMs, it is essential to have a very efficient distribution transformer network. So, in this regard, inside the policy framework, the Central Electricity Authority came out with a white paper, a very interesting, very detailed document in March 2023, wherein they talked about the transformer failure rate, how to make the distribution transformers more efficient. So the paper starts by appreciating all the good work which has happened in this space, all the framework of BIS certification, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, star labeling, which has led to the standardization of the product, as well as a very significant improvement in the quality and the efficiency of distribution transformers. But it also talks about that the distribution transformer failure rate are high and it needs to come down. And so I'll be touching upon only two aspects of the paper. It's a very detailed document. The first is it talks of a CSP, Complete Self-Protection Scheme. So the paper, the CA document says that the transformer should have the ability to protect itself from the fault. Now again, the terminology used by CA is secondary side circuit breaker. So it gives the full flexibility to the DISCOM to choose the type of circuit breaker, to have the configuration customized. It doesn't talk of any ACB or MCCB, but the secondary side circuit breaker should be deployed. So this is one part. Second, it also talks about some initiatives on the load side, on the consumer side, improvement in power factor. But what we can do on the DISCOM side is, in terms of when a transformer is energized, it takes the magnetization reaction, it takes reactive power for the magnetization purpose. And at the, when it is fully loaded, due to the leakage reactance, it has a KVR loss. So on the DISCOM side, what we can do is at least we can compensate, we can have the reactive power compensation for that part. So again, we have solutions, LT shunt capacitors and circuit breakers. We have in the exhibition area, we have all the solutions which is in line with what CA document recommends for making the distribution transformer more efficient, more reliable, and taking forward this Government of India's vision of 24/7 quality and reliable power to all its consumers, and of course, preventing revenue losses to the DISCOMs.
Thank you. So this really flags and opens up a segue to a discussion open to everyone. We know that a lot of this change has a cost. It will also have benefits. Now, who benefits, how much is going to vary location to location. But if I just take, for example, the EV. If a sedan somebody buys, four-wheeler, larger, they may have a 7.2 kilowatt three-phase charging capability in their home. We're not talking fast DC charger at the home. Then that may require transformer augmentation, because often we find in richer neighborhoods or apartments, there's more EVs. If you have a small penetration of EVs, it's not going to be evenly distributed. So there are localized pockets of cost immediately to be borne. Now, is it meant to be that all of this transition and these changes should just be passed through? The word you had used was planning. Is it planned? A, how are we doing this planning? And B, should all of this cost end up being socialized? Or should it be more granular, which is a double-edged sword? For some people, it's more saving. But for some people, it will be a cost increase, which is microeconomically efficient. How do we see this playing out? Open sort of question. But of course, in the interest of time, people are free to also share other key insights that would be important for this topic. But to the regulators, do you see DISCOMs coming to you often for these, and are you treating it as part of cost plus, or is there more depth that we should try for in this transition? Varmaji, Mopatraji, yeah.
Hello. Actually, when we go for this MNRE schemes like Kusum C, Kusum A, they come out with some proposals like Prime Minister free solar household scheme. All those schemes, they come and we discussed, and they asked for different tariffs so that it is become viable. Because initially we had, for Kusume, we had fixed the tariff 3 rupees, 303 paisa. So nobody come forward for Kusume scheme. Now we are discussing if we enhance it to 440 paisa, people may come and players may participate in the process. So that way we are also discussing how it will be successful. Like Kusum C also with 360 paisa purchase cost, we could not find anything because agriculture farmers, they are getting free power. So they don't want to pay anything. So we are thinking, let us reduce their burden, increasing to some extent. That will help us because cross subsidy burden will reduce, and loss at LT level, HT level will, because directly we will be giving the power to the agriculture farmers instead of taking the help of the distribution network. So that will reduce the losses to a great extent, and DISCOM is also taking initiative how to implement such type of schemes. Other tariffs we generally decide at our level at the ARR based on the discussions with the distribution companies and other things.
Verma ji, sir.
Rahul, you have asked for the tariff and procedure for the EVs. Yeah, for the EVs, is
That was
the
just an example, I mean.
Yeah. So this wherever the group of consumers comes to DISCOMs for the particular categories, they generally comes for the specified tariffs, just like you mentioned for the EV. EV, we have a fixed, every DISCOM has fixed tariff, and for the installation of charging station also, we have made policies for the DISCOMs, and they are giving the connections as per their requirement.
If we see the ministries, I mean, so many policies and technology and DISCOM are interlinked when we talk about the future of DISCOMs. So, of course, Puchari sir talked about the need to rethink the role of the DISCOM. But even if before we get there, let's take a simple example of TOD. Now, we recognize the theoretical value proposition of time of day because solar, which is the dominant new growth in the RE phase, is very time concentrated. It's well known. Now, one of the flip requirements is consumers would need appropriate metering. At the minimum, digital with TOD, but more likely smart capabilities. Is this a chicken and egg problem? Like, are we waiting for one versus the other? How do we see this playing out?
Yeah, Rahul, I think as far as the technology is concerned for time of day billing, I think today's meters are very much enabled, smart meters being deployed, and not just time of day, but also seasonality of time of day. So we can really do a seasonality and time of day both provided together. I think rest is up to the regulatory how this tariff of TOD is done, not just at the CNI consumers, but I think going forward it might also be the need for at least high-end residential consumers, because they are also a significant power consumer. And this is one thing which has been probably missing as far as the regulatory is concerned in terms of time of day for consumer meters.
So, before I open it to a few questions, there are so many, fast-changing aspects of this energy transition, as well as policy changes, viability. Many policies come out from the government. We obviously need to do many things. But if we had to prioritize, like what is either necessary to do before another, or where we get maximum transformation or bang for buck, any thoughts on where our focus should be from the supply side, DISCOM side, regulatory side? Open sort of question.
Yeah, so just one thought, we are talking of smart meters, but smart is the possibility of making the system smart is everywhere. Why can't we have a switchgear which takes all the parameters of distribution transformers, the oil temperature, the winding temperature, and we can also have some kind of a solution which integrates the current-based protection with temperature-based protection. So somehow we are actually graduating to a next level because abnormal temperature rise, the heating, it's a very burning area.
So question to you.
Yeah.
there are a lot of technologies which are possible, but should it be that they are mandated, that we have a standard, or is it that the market will sort of figure out, okay, there's value proposition here, and let me
Absolutely.
let it get...
I mean, whatever the policy framework, the documents are there, it's in the form of a nudge. Nothing is mandatory. It's
So it's
optional
a
for
nudge.
the... Yeah, it's a nudge, it's a guideline, a suggestion. So why can't we have it? Like, because the breaker, the microprocessor-based intelligence release, some release can integrate the temperature and current both together without any external sensor. So it gives a lot of value proposition to the end user. Yeah.
Rahul, they are the OEMs, but on their behalf I assure that there are technologies for everything and anything a DISCOM may want. But the challenge, real challenge is that which technology to choose to suit a particular DISCOM's problem. That is one challenge. The other point, my response would be from a DISCOM perspective regarding TOD. You raised a topic about TOD. While TOD is one problem to be looked at, but another perspective of looking at TOD is the demand response. Demand response is an area where all the country has to move to. There isn't enough work that has been done, though pilots have been made, some proof of concepts have been displayed. Many DISCOMs have done pilots, but a very concrete thing on the demand response side, unless it is coming, which is beyond any technology. It is maybe incentive signal, price signal, whatever. That is going to be the need of the day, because since India is a hot country, so either summer or winter, be it a heat load, be it a AC load, it is peaking like anything. The growth rate of peaks is far more than the growth rate in energy, which puts pressure on network. And that network is only going to be used for a few hours in a year. Now, which technology can prevent such kind of investment by a DISCOM? So it will only be TOD and demand response put together that these peaks can be addressed. Because peak is, say, putting network. Also, peak puts another pressure on the transmission network as well. Now, transmission network, the transmission companies are B2B. They get paid through GNA. Now, GNA has come. So they get paid. And the DISCOMs can't pay GNA for those 3 months of the year. So they pay for the entire year. So GNA is paid for by the DISCOMs for the entire year. So these are the problems. So what I feel is that while technologies are galore, it is a point that the correct technologies have to be chosen and customized. But the demand response signals have to come in big way in the country. That's what I feel from a DISCOM perspective.
Yeah, technology are available. Yes, whatever is out of the total basket of technology, whatever is suitable for the DISCOM, they can choose, number one. But as far as standardization is concerned, I think, you asked whether you leave it to the market or really lay the standards. My reading is that I think minimum standards should be laid, which is minimum essential. Of course, for that the technical body like CA or maybe other bodies, they have to take a call. And rest all you leave it to the market, which is basically topping. But as far as technology and managing the grid is concerned, two important issue is, yes, has to be a combination of technology and policy and economic incentives or disincentives together, because they have to go together. I mean, you may bring technology, but as he says that if peak is coming at a particular way, how do you manage the peak? One is by technology, one is by providing incentive or disincentive so that you can manage the peak by flattening the load or something like that. So it has to be a combination of both. You can't just take one. And which is suitable to which DISCOM is basically, again, depends where the DISCOM is located, their load profile, and other consumer mix and other things. So it has to be a flexible thing. Coming back to the point that was raised by Mr. Mukherjee and others, Mr. Mahapatra was also raising, why there is a mandate from the government to do and which is uniform for all the DISCOMs. I think we should understand the legacy issue. Power is a concurrent subject. Distribution is in the domain of the respective state government. The structure of the act as it stands today also, that as far as the distribution is concerned, it has to be decided by the respective regulators within the state. The Government of India can guide or provide broad policy issues. So that's why if you look at the past, it was the Act, and within the Act, it is a policy and guidelines. The number of rules were very, very, very limited till last 4 to 5 years. The rules were not notified by the Government of India. It was very, very limited. Few rules were there, which was basically to be followed commonly by all the states. Because in the legal framework, the Act is the top, then the rules, then the regulations, then the guidelines. And Government of India is to provide old-time general guidelines and policy directions, and the regulators looking at their own environment ecosystem is to really translate it into their state regulations. Unfortunately, in the last few years, the rules have been notified by the government. Once the rules are notified, it becomes uniformly applicable to all the thing, and it supersedes in the legal parlance all the regulations. So your regulation cannot be in contradiction of the rules that has been notified. So that is a problem, legal problem that is coming up. So what was happening and what is happening in the last few years, that is basically a issue. So what I also suggest that, yes, you give the policy direction that, yes, we need to promote RE. You say that what is the way to promote RE? You say RPO should be there. Then you give a broad guide and leave to the state, saying that, no, you for one thing like Northeast states, the RPO can be within this range. You can give a guideline saying that, minimum this, max this, you can do this within that, fix a regulation. Then what happens, the regulator has the flexibility to decide. Now that is not happening, because if you prescribe from the top that it has to be a so-and-so percentage, it becomes, the state regulator can't change or the state can't change it. So we need to really look, the way we have issued those rules in the last few years, we need to really look at whether we go ahead like that or bring in that flexibility which has been talked about.
Thank you. We have time for just 2 questions from the audience. Open it up to anyone with a question. Please introduce yourself and keep it brief. And if it's directed to anyone in particular, please let them know.
Hi, I'm Alex. I work with RMI, which is a think tank. My question is for Mr. Mohapatra, but others are free to respond as well. And it's specifically, I want to follow up with Dr. Rao's comment about cost-reflective banking charges for green hydrogen. But I feel like this is general, banking for RE in general, time of day. You mentioned capping the limit of RE at 30%, and I feel like that's often the regulator's response. They'll limit the amount of RE, rather than saying this RE has a real cost to the system, therefore I'm going to charge you 1 rupee or 1.5 or 2 rupees, or whatever it is the cost of that banking. So my question for you, but for regulators more broadly, is why is there an aversion to charging kind of cost-reflective, banking charges, cross-subsidy surcharges, transmission charges, whatever the case may be, but with a specific focus on the green hydrogen banking?
Actually, green hydrogen power requirement is huge. So in the country, we are expecting 5 million metric ton per annum, which requires around 25 gigawatt of renewable energy.
100 plus, sir.
I think
20
25
per million ton.
megawatt per metric ton, I think, million
Yes,
metric ton.
20
Yes.
per ton.
So that is a huge requirement for a state like us, where we don't have any renewable. So they have to get it from outside. They will bank it with us. So it is not possible. That's why we are restricting for banking as far as green hydrogen is concerned. But we want to promote green hydrogen in our state also. So whatever best possible we are doing so that they come up and start generating green hydrogen.
Thank you. I'd now take the moderator's prerogative to close in the interest of time. But 2 key takeaways we had from this discussion. One, this need for flexibility is not just on technology, but on policy and regulation. And 2, we have heterogeneity. It is both a challenge, but also an opportunity to do things differently as per local conditions. But to close that loop, we all, stakeholders especially, need to do our homework so we have some analysis and evidence that can be used by the regulators and DISCOMs when they do their decision-making process. So it's ongoing task, and that is why it's a pleasure to be here and continue the discussions with everyone. Thank you. And thank you to my...
Yeah.
one sort of last, sort of 30 seconds, sir.
Yes, because in our state, around 95 lakhs of consumers are there. So far, we have installed 6 lakhs smart meters. But we are planning that the entire meter should be replaced by smart meters. So it is not an easy process. So we are thinking of doing it through CapEx. So socializing the, not to burden the consumers. So the DISCOM has come out with a proposal. But in the long run, what we are finding difficulty, because if you see the employment and the other part, the DISCOM has so far engaged around 14.5 lakhs people, the regular employee. And we have 4 DISCOMs, they have business associates. For business associates, they have engaged 6 to 7,000, means 28,000 people are engaged for metering, billing, and operation maintenance. When you go for smart metering, so naturally you have to remove some of the people who are engaged in the local area who are getting employment. So that is one of the great challenge for us, how to think over it. Because when you remove some of the people, like 28,000 people are engaged on year basis, on casual or under the BA. So that will be a great challenge for, I think for us now, maybe for others. Although, why we are thinking this smart meter is in the long run is going to give a lot of benefits when we go for asset mapping and consumer indexing. So attending to the fault and other things will be very, very easy, and data will help us in a great extent in conservation of energy also. So from that point of view, we are focusing, but at the same time, we have to see how to handle the manpower requirement. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll close this session. So I thank you all for your valued inputs and suggestions. Now I request Reggie sir to please come and facilitate all our speakers, please.